Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to the video. This time is the Figma Goblin Slayer, the guy who just pretty much wants to exterminate all goblins. So, let's get started. Just as a little joke, I left his shield and sword on because we already know he almost never removes his stuff. So I just wanted to make a little joke about that. With that being said, I'm actually going to remove these guys so we can jump into the review part for him. And one of the things I want to talk about is the simple fact that he actually comes very simple and to the point. It is basically a manner of shield, sword, club, goblin slayer. You know what I mean? So first things first, let's cover that articulation that we all know and love. So he kind of has like what's going on with the Lancer body. There's lots of points of articulation. There's a lot of movement. It actually holds together pretty well. I think my only issue I'm going to have with this figure is the simple fact that he's pretty small, like all Figmas. But he looks the part. And there's one other thing that I don't enjoy, which is the fact that the Ninjroid came with the glowing eye accessory, and this guy did not. So I'm trying to find alternatives on how to do that. My friend Blonde Mech told me to use clear folding paper, so I'm going to try that later. Anyway, let's jump into articulation. The head doesn't really look up, which is crazy, and it doesn't really look down. Now, with that being said, I don't think I've seen Goblin Slayer do any of those things at all inside his helmet. So I just want to point that out. It could be later on he changes that, but as far as head movement goes, you get the left and the right movement, and you get a little bit of downward movement, but you cannot look up at all. The helmet in the back is going to ruin that all sort of range of motion, so it's just not happening. You actually can use his little ponytail at the end. There's a ball joint here, so you actually can rotate that whichever way you feel like it. As far as the arms go, the shoulder pads actually are soft and can move out, so when you rotate the arms up, it shouldn't get too much in the way, but if it does, you can just fold it up, and you can move your arms up pretty much that way. There is a lower forearm swivel. There is a bicep swivel. Mine is pretty tight, and it's in the way, but let me hold down the shoulder pad, and you can see that you can actually rotate that left and right. Then there is a movement swivel ball joint that allows you to manipulate like a butterfly joint and move the arms forward or backwards. Now, it's a little wonky. It's not as clean as it is on the Figma Lancer, but it is present here, and it's really good. So that means just like this, as you can see, I can put the arm up when I'm doing certain attacks, and I still have that bicep swivel. The single joint actually rotates into an acute angle, so it can go a little bit further past the 90 degrees that everybody hates. So while not double jointed, it does give you an array of articulation. Now, as far as the waist goes, you can go left and right. There is very deep ab crunch going forward and ab crunch going backwards. So even though you can't look up, you can kind of make up for that when you're moving the waist around. As far as the legs go, the legs use the old school Figma joints as usual. The leg can go forward. It's single jointed, but it's cut on an acute angle, so there's no much of a big problem. You have the ankle pivot, which is actually really nice and rotates all the way around and through. So, one of the things I want to talk about here is with his articulation. Like I said, oh, wait, I was wrong. I was totally wrong. So, wait, let me stop. I have to just stop what I was thinking about in the first place. I was totally wrong. You can actually get the head to look up. And I was just about to talk about how in certain poses, it's not going to be good if you can't look up. But all I had to do is push it in because mine is really tight, and you can move the head up. So now when you're doing certain poses, since you can look up, this actually changes everything. This changes my whole opinion so far. So I didn't know my joints were that tight. But let's say you wanted to get into a nice crouching pose. Voila, it's done. If you wanted to do a jumping pose, like if you were jumping over a bunch of goblins, guess what? It's done. You can now jump and attack at people. He can actually strike a lot of different poses now that I normally wouldn't think could be done because I thought that you couldn't get the head up, but I was wrong. So that pretty much changes my entire outlook on the figure. Now I'm super excited to do a lot more, and I'm glad I didn't take pictures yet. I would have been really, really disappointed. And you can rotate it left and right as well. Ooh, just so many things I'm learning while I'm actually on the camera. This is actually pretty fun. So, as you can see here, you can fold it out. You can get into fighting stances. You can do a bunch of different stuff with this guy that's going to allow you to have that nice range of motion. Now, one thing you may want to worry about is that because it's... Ooh, sorry about that, guys. One thing you may want to worry about because on camera, either on or off camera, is the simple fact that Figma joints do get a little loose sometimes, so you will have to be careful with that. You can't wear them out too much, and silicone shock oil won't hold with these guys, so you may have to do a limit pledge technique going forward. As you can see, he has a nice sheath for his short blade. For when goblins are in caves, you don't want a long sword, right? So he has a nice short blade. Voila. Fits right in the sheath. Does really well there. The shield itself, what I recommend you do is you take off the wrist. Sorry, you take off the hand attached to the wrist, and you place it right through the arm, which lines up very well. And then you place the fist back on. My joints came in really tight, so I'm actually pretty excited about this. I'm actually going to work through this. And as you can see, he holds up pretty well. You can fold it forward for the shield, and there's a nice little X on it carved in. It's weathered just a bit, so it looks really nice. That's something I don't really catch Figma normally doing, so it's nice to see it. So while on camera, I gotta honestly say, he looks fantastic. Functions fantastically. Looking up is a real game changer for this figure, because it wouldn't be able to. It'd be a little bit of a bummer in terms of the things he can do. So right now we actually have a lot going on. Now, the other accessory is his billy club that you see early on, that he pretty much beats to death with some goblins. And then you only get two other sorts of hands. One of them is being a hand that holds shield, so you can hold it on the shield, or you can hold on to other items depending on how you're going to go about that. Then you get a hand dedicated to holding the sword and the club. Sword is in the sheath, but I'll use the club for right now. And you can just rotate that, sliding it in, and voila, he holds the club actually pretty tightly. You also get the infamous Figma Stand that comes with all Figmas, right? And you give you one extra wrist ball joint, which I think is very nice of them. You know, should you break your joint, you get one little extra one. But you only get one, like Spider-Man from Family Guy. You only get one. Now, real quick, I'm going to stand this guy up. And what's going to happen is I'm going to show him next to some other stuff. Some stuff you may know of, some stuff you may not. It all depends on how you want to go about it. But I am going to use the Mythic Legion stuff. And I'm going to compare it because it's kind of a fantasy world. And in this fantasy world, you can actually use the Mythic Legion stuff to go with him. Except because he is so small, he will look a little out of scale with some of these guys. Meanwhile, other ones he'll look just right. So the first thing I'm going to do is scale him up with some Mythic Legions, and then we're going to do other lines, right? First things first, you guys want to know how he's going to look with goblins. I'm pretty sure everybody does, including myself. So this is a Mythic Legions goblin next to him. While they're not completely tiny, they are smaller than him. So that still offers you the ability to army build them around him, make it work for you. Have them crouching down a little for some force perspective, whichever you feel like is going to work for you. But I think personally you can use these guys very well. Here he is next to a Minotaur from Mythic Legions. This is using one of their larger bodies, and I'm showing him because, like I said, this is a mythic world, so you can use these guys. Here he is next to an elf, and as you can see, he is very tiny. These guys are more 7-inch than they are anything else. Figma is more non-scaled to 5 inches, depending on how you go about it. Also, shout out to CJ for this custom cloak. You've made a world of difference with this figure for me. So I want to say thank you for that. Here he is next to King Noglin from Mythic Legions. And I think these actually are going to pair pretty well because goblins do range in different sizes. And King Noglin could be a little bigger with the crown to actually go up against him. So I think that's going to work. So let's put the goblin away and the Minotaur. And I do want to compare him to Figma Gene Alter. And the reason why that is should you have any Figma girls that want to know what they look like size-wise next to him, here you go. He's still taller than them. They're not much taller, but taller, right? So there's that. Now we're going to up and compare him to other lines and other things so you guys can see what's going on. First things first, let's get this big guy out of the way, which is Storm Collectibles Guile. As you can see, in terms of size-wise, he's ripped the Goblin Slayer to shreds. Here he is next to a Berserker Armor Guts, in case you want to get these guys together to do battle. And, you know, just pretty much team up against goblins and monsters and things like that. As you see, Guts is probably one of the tallest male characters they've ever done, because everything else is pretty much much smaller. So yeah, let's put these two guys away. Here he is next to a Marvel Legends Spider-Man, which as you can see, still very tiny. Here he is next to an SH Figuarts Kamen Rider. And even Kamen Rider is bigger than him. And these guys are usually the smallest ones to actually work out with anything. So it's weird to see them, something is actually smaller. So that's, I think they scaled him a little too small, personally. He's way too small, because he's even smaller than Articulated Icons Ninja. So That's how I know they've scaled him too small. If he was about the same height as them, sure, great. But they have scaled him way too small for the amount that you're gonna pay for him. So I think that one's a little tough. But articulation wise, I think he's great. It just really sucks that they made him so small. Here he is, next to a Hasbro Lightning Collection Power Ranger. Let me try to get these guys. There we go. Try to get you in a nice spot. Much taller. Last but not least, we're gonna try Mezco. Da 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 da. Mezco Joker. Shout out to TJ again for this jacket. I appreciate it. I just put it on this guy. So yeah. Oh. One more thing I do want to add. For those of you that buy the Mythic Legions, the trolls and the dwarves and the everything else, here he is next to this big guy. And as you can see, he doesn't even fit inside the screen, so just want to show that. As always, guys, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found it informative. But most of all, hope you guys do good, be good, drink your water. Later.